Topbed Talk.
Professor Gerard Danjoux is a consultant in anaesthesia and sleep medicine at Southeast. He leads on the Prepwell study. He's a visiting professor at Southeast. However, he's just recently been appointed as adjunct professor or professor at Hull, York Medical School. Jerry. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. Can you hear me okay on the mic here? So I feel when we were doing a Top Med talk with Ken, he said he felt like an imposter. And I kind of feel a little bit of imposter now with this. But anyway, what I'd like to do is to share some learning and experiences from the Prepwell project, which we recently set up, 15 months ago, for a community-based prehabilitation program. This is a Prepwell team in the top corner with exercise scientists, with people from public health and health trainers, and the big smiling person on the right-hand side at the start of the project is Esther. I don't think she's smiling quite as broadly anymore, but I don't know. She's here somewhere. So just a few quick declarations. So the Prepwell program was what we considered to be a truly kind of collaborative venture. The partners involved in funding this was predominantly funded by a Health Foundation Innovation Grant, but we partnered with Public Health through Public Health Middlesbrough, and we used the Live Well facility as our community wellbeing hub for delivery. South Tees Clinical Commissioning Group provided some co-funding for this venture, and also the host organisation was South Tees NHS Foundation Trust, which is the organisation that I work for. So when we set out on this, we had to do some decision-making as to why we thought the community was the best way to go. And I don't think, having listened to 1.5 days now, any of these will be a surprise. The big one for us was from some preparatory work we'd done with patient workshops and so on, was that 50% or over of patients wanted more choice. They didn't want to come into the hospital to be doing this in our area. There was ease of access. There were logistical problems in secondary care. We just don't have enough capacity to deliver this. Where? Well, we have existing facilities. We have plenty of things available, as we've all heard with the Manchester talk this morning. They've got all these community hubs there and ready to go. And of course, we had to have a think about the options of supervised versus facilitated. So the key components were that it was truly collaborative in our eyes. It was community-based for the reasons I've just said. It was free to patients at the point of delivery. And also it was truly one-stop in that we were able, under one roof, to offer the full range of public health interventions. So exercise, smoking support, alcohol support, nutritional support. Everything was available under one roof. So this is just a view of the inside of the gym. When you look at this building from the outside, it looks pretty ghastly. But it's recently had a complete 1 million refurb, and it's transformed the public health delivery in Middlesbrough. So much so that very recently, as in 2 or 3 days ago, the public health team have won a national award for public health improvement. And this in the middle is Edward Kanunga, who's our Director of Public Health. So delighted to be able to show that. So just to finish, we were multimodal in that we were looking at the range of health behaviours, but not only that, we were actually looking and screening for undiagnosed comorbidity and chronic health conditions. So this was quite a challenging project. It was health trainer delivered, but physiotherapy supervised. And where we could, we took the lessons from an established successful model of care, which was cardiac rehabilitation. And we worked very closely with Sally Singh and Patrick Doherty, who are kind of leading in this field from cardiac rehab. So I don't need to go through this. I'll just leave this up for a few seconds. The main thing really for us was to show that we could implement this model into a community model into patient care as part of a pathway. And you can see the secondary aims and objectives further down. So this was effectively the program overview. So what we were doing was we were trying to assess a clinical champion program, because we moved away from trying to convince all surgeons and all anaesthetists to refer, because that wasn't going to get us buy-in in our eyes. So surgeons or anaesthetists could refer with a very simple one-page pro forma to the project manager, Esther, and then we would do an entry evaluation that would normally take about 45 minutes to an hour, where we would do a face-to-face evaluation based in the community, where we would look at unhealthy or risk behaviours, and we would screen for chronic health conditions. Following that, a tailored package was put together for patients, and they were offered primarily a face-to-face twice a week, prehabilitation from the point of view of exercise, or if they couldn't make it or they preferred, they could have a home-based alternative. They were also offered tailored support for smoking cessation, etc., as I've said. Following program, they came in before surgery and had an exit evaluation which mirrored the entry evaluation. And that was to look for changes in risk behaviours, health status and changes in quality of life consequent to taking part in the program. Following surgery, and we're still collecting some of this data, we're looking at we are contacting patients at 3 months to look for sustained changes in behaviour, and also to look at changes in quality of life, and we're going to compare those to baseline. So the program looked something like this, where they would have a clinical evaluation, and then there would be agreed interventions that the patient would sign up to. So I'm not going to go through these in detail, but these were the risk factors that we were looking for, and these are the different ways that we were evaluating. So HADS is a hospital anxiety and depression score, which is a pretty well validated tool. That's the clinical frailty score, looking for frailty. And if they triggered at a certain level, we would then progress to do an Edmonton frailty assessment. We've heard about the risk of postoperative pulmonary complications predicted during the ARISCAT from Denny's talk yesterday. So that was the range of evaluation strategies that we were using. And Esther was very experienced in this. She was previously manager for our cardiac rehab. I managed to track her down during a sabbatical in Australia and drag her back. So she keeps saying she's going to go again. And these were the range of proposed interventions, again, that we had available. So I'll just leave that up for a few seconds. But again, I don't suppose there's any kind of surprise on there. A lot of people are doing this. We were also able to offer expedited sleep evaluation and sleep diagnostics, primarily in the local setting because of my interest in sleep medicine. But if you, in our trust, if you stop the clock for somebody because of suspected obstructive sleep apnea, it can well be nearly 6 months before they get an outpatient appointment, put on treatment and seen again. And basically, we were able to pretty much abolish that. So in the local setting, that would be a real win-win situation. But as you'll see, there weren't many people who triggered. So what results did we find here? So just to start with, we had 159 referrals made, and this is pretty small scale compared to a lot of the things that have been presented. This was very much a pilot, a fact-finding exercise for us. 75 of them, of the patients, accepted. And when we look at that in a little bit more detail, if I get the right pointer, the reasons for declining participation aren't going to be a surprise. The majority of people who declined weren't interested. We're a tertiary institution with a large catchment area across North Yorkshire all the way up to County Durham. So it is a big tertiary catchment area. And we weren't just concentrating on the South Tees CCG area, or at least we didn't say we were, and we had a number of referrals from elsewhere. Travel, transport, again, and also patients having surgery in less than 4 weeks. But again, we're hearing now that maybe that shouldn't have been a barrier. It looks like we're recognising that maybe benefits within 2 weeks that we can fit people in. Next, what about the people who accepted? So of the 75 who accepted, 54 opted for the face-to-face program. And when we look at our sources of referral, the big thing for us was to try and get surgical buy-in through the Champion program. And we were really pleased to see that nearly 2/3 of our referrals were made to the service by GPs. Now, I know there's a long way to go to get back to that work with the GPs and getting earlier in the pathway, but that was a big success for us from where we were before. And we took a range of specialties, and the number of referrals reflected the engagement of the surgical champions. And that's a really important message for us as we take the next steps. An entry, from the time from referral to entry, was averaged 12 days. When we look at the entry characteristics, there's not really any kind of major surprises here. The population age was 69 average. It was predominantly a white British population, which for our area is fairly consistent, and 70% were males. But look at how many patients self-reported that they achieved the World Health Organization recommended activity levels. Nobody at baseline. Very few patients in this population were screened as frail, and only 6% triggers being at risk of obstructive sleep apnea, which is a surprise to me. Having written some guidelines on this, we talk a lot about prevalence rates of 20 to 25%. And that is a big problem that we haven't really touched on sleep as part of multimodal prehabilitation, but maybe it's something we do need to think about. Looking at those who completed an exit, we can see that only 50% of our patients who came into entry completed an exit. So that was another learning point. People made appointments and then didn't turn up. Some people had their surgery cancelled. There were various reasons why that happened. But we need to try a little bit harder with that side of it. So just looking a little bit at the exit criteria, we can see self-reported compliance with the WHO guidelines improved from 0% at entry to 73% at exit. So we were really pleased with that. And when we actually looked at the 6-minute walk distances, you can see the average improvement there. But more importantly, if we look at individual responses, and we heard Ken talking about the outliers a bit, and maybe we get a bit focused on the mean sometimes, that 56% achieved a minimum clinically important difference at 25 meters, which is the threshold for cardiac rehabilitation. So that may fit a bit with the concept of responders and non-responders. I know Ken doesn't believe in the concept of non-responders. You kind of say we just don't give anybody the right, we've got to give people the right volume, maybe. Smoking rates declined. Okay, it's not huge, but it's an improvement. Alcohol drinking above governmental levels declined. We didn't really expect to see much in the way of BMI changes. And when we looked at the HADs, one of these was a slight surprise for us, though. Borderline or elevated HADs for anxiety actually increased from baseline. However, depression was reduced. So that's something that we need to think about. It's a small sample, we have to remember that, but it is an important finding. And when we looked at mean health-related quality of life using the EQ5D, a recognised validated tool, we can see that there was a slight improvement on exit. So lots of green, which we felt was positive. Other program details. 21% of our patients screened with the Aeroscat were prescribed inspiratory muscle training, and we used the Power Breathe device. Mean program duration was 9.3 weeks, which was slightly skewed by long waiters in the orthopedic population. And mean session attendance was 73%, which is we were quite pleased with for a community-based pilot. So you shouldn't read anything into the fact that the pound sign's bigger than the euro sign and the euro sign's underneath. Okay? So we started our health economic analysis, and the mean cost per patient for the program was about £400. It varied by specialty, but the main determinant was duration, as you would expect. The mean cost per week per patient was £50. That's not a huge expense, I think we would agree. The costs incorporated staff time, equipment, and also facility usage. So that was a fairly encompassing cost analysis, which we're still working on. So we saw some unanticipated benefits. Referrals from the abdominal aortic aneurysm screening program came online, which we were delighted with before they'd even seen their surgeons. We had project endorsement by sceptical surgeons, which was brilliant. We started getting surgeons who initially weren't interested referring. And this became apparent that we were seeing this as an enabler for patients who had a multi-disciplinary evaluation with cardiopulmonary exercise testing and MDT analysis, who were initially decreed as being too high risk. And that was particularly in the abdominal aortic aneurysm population. And we've got a poster here at the meeting with 2 case examples of patients who were then offered training programs and successfully had one having open aneurysm surgery and one having endovascular surgery, but came through without any complications. I realise this is anecdote, but at the patient level, these can be quite powerful stories. When we look at our patient-reported outcomes, we're getting on to the important stuff now, we had 3 strategies. We looked at semi-thematic interviews with 5 patients. We did exit questionnaires, and then we had audio-visual recordings. So if we look at semi-thematic interviews to start with, the first question was, why did you choose to take part in the programme? So I've just put a selection of things up there. But you can see it's not all about the surgery and getting fit for surgery. There were issues about social isolation and other things that were removed by participation. And we've heard about that over the last day and a half. What changes have you noticed as a result of the programme? So again, you can see varied responses. It changed my attitude. And that's kind of what we were hearing yesterday as part of the Macmillan. Has it affected how you'll approach life going forwards? So somebody wants to get back to golf, and there are other kind of reasons why people would consider participating in exercise and things later on. The exit questionnaires showed a very consistent theme that the programme was rated very highly and all patients would recommend the programme to other patients in the future. I'm going to show an audiovisual recording to finish. So in summary, we have shown that implementation was feasible with effective cross-sector working. There was very good patient engagement and feedback. We saw improvements in health status as a consequence of the programme. The Clinical Champion programme worked well, but we have to address the outliers. And we've got lessons to learn moving forwards. And we're now going to take the next stage, where we've got some funding, or a reasonable amount of funding through a Sport England local delivery pilot grant, to modify and revamp our higher risk pathway. And there are great lessons that I'm personally learning from delivery of these models today, and I'm planning to visit some of the other centres to remodel how we do things for this higher risk pathway. Our high risk pathway isn't totally focused on the cancer services, but we are increasingly going to bring that in. And then we're looking at a lighter touched, higher volume pathway, which will start with orthopaedics, but will evolve from there. And we've got some jobs out to advert presently for that. So just to finish, I want to show one of our, it's not a patient story, it's a number of patients who in a short clip.
And I loved it. You met new people. You did the exercises, you felt well in yourself when you came out because it helps your mind as well.
With the incentive I've got now, I've got into cooking, like healthier foods, stir fries and things like that, rice and noodles and things like that. And I enjoy it, yeah. So it's been good. I lost 1.5 stone in, 6 weeks, 4 weeks. I mean, I really pushed myself, but I did it. Because I knew if I didn't, I probably wouldn't survive. I wouldn't be sat in this chair today.
It's going well, I think. It's going okay. I'm enjoying it. I feel better when I've done it. So yeah, it's going good. Once the session's over, it makes you feel as if it makes you feel you've achieved something, and you also feel better in yourself because you've done some exercise. It's definitely worth your while because it does make you feel better. Even if it's not just for the exercise, if it's for the socialisation, if it's for talking to other people who haven't done what you haven't done, even if it's talking to your physio,
There's
and
Esther.
they can help you out with things that you didn't think you probably could help you out with, and it can just make you feel better if you are having a bad time.
Could we just go back to the slides, please? So those things like that were actually the warm-up and the cool-down. They weren't the aerobic bits. So just to finish, I just want to put some acknowledgements up for all the partners who have helped us to make that programme happen and start our prehabilitation journey at South Tees. So thanks very much.
Lee Majerison here. Thanks for listening to Top Med Talk. Now, before we let you go, it's important that we remind you to subscribe to Top Med Talk. That way you'll never, ever miss another episode. Also, if we could encourage you to join us on social media, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, pretty much every single social media platform, we're there. Join us. And finally, check out topmedtalk.com. If you go to our website, you can subscribe to email updates. That way we can always tell you where we're going to be, what we're going to be doing, and how you can join us. topmedtalk.com and click on the section marked email updates. Finally, Top Med Talk is proud to act as the broadcasting arm of EBPOM, Evidence-Based Perioperative Medicine. We'd love you to find out more about them as well. ebpom.org is their website. That's ebpom.org. And if you go to ebpom.org/meetings, you can find out about some of the wonderful meetings that we attend and cover across the year here on Top Med Talk. That's ebpom.org/meetings.